Hi witches, throughout my years in YouTube and Facebook, the request of sharing information on La Santísima Muerte has been amongst the most popular requests. But it has been until I read this book that I feel confident to talk about this beautiful saint. Today, I have for you the review on the fantastic book, The Secrets of La Santa Muerte, a guide to the prayers, spells, rituals, and hexes by the amazing Cressida Stone. If this is something that interests you, stick around because it's coming up right now. Hi witches, blessed be. This is WhiteRaven over here. Today's Monday, so happy Magic Monday to all of you guys. Welcome to the Witches Lair. Today I feel honored to be able to share what I think about this book, what I learn about this book, a review of this book. And before I go into the review, I want to make clear that I am going to be doing this with the utmost respect. This is the third time that I filmed this video, and I think there's a reason for everything in my life, especially in my witchy life. I really hope that this review pleases you and explain you and at least give you some type of curiosity, ignite something in your brain for you to study and research this formidable saint, La Santísima Muerte. Which is, if you're going to read this book, make sure that you are completely at peace, you're not going to be interrupted, but more than reading, witches, feel, perceive. Because I tell you right now, witches, this book is charge. I have some serious experiences while reading this book, and I have no doubt, I felt in my heart that it was La Santísima Muerte herself talking to me. I have never felt something like that with any other book. I love books, I get really excited reading books, but this particular book, I felt like this book is almost alive. When you read this book, make sure that you are open to messages, okay? Read it, but also perceive and feel the book. What a book, witches. What a book. The Secrets of Santa Muerte is a teaching tool in which the author is going to take you by the hand and is going to teach you how to connect with La Santa Muerte, how to work with La Santa Muerte, and how to honor La Santa Muerte. The book has about 237 pages. Let me show you the book. Is here. I think I have shared this image with you before. I think this is a beautiful image of La Santísima Muerte. As a matter of fact, the purple Santísima Muerte is the one that I feel more related to if I were to work with her. But in order for you to know what the colors mean, you have to read the book. Anyways, it has about 237 pages. It has a preface. And I invite you to read that preface, because in the preface, the author, Cressida Stone, is going to tell you how she came about to meeting La Santa Muerte. Why did she become a devotee of this amazing saint, La Santísima Muerte? The book then is going to follow with 9 chapters, which I'm going to talk to you guys about further in this video. And then at the end, you're going to have a postscript in which the author, Cressida Stone, has a beautiful message for you and me, for the reader. So please make sure you read that message. And she's going to finish with the acknowledgement. Now, I invite you to check that acknowledgement, because among those names, there's some very important devotees of La Santa Muerte from Mexico and some from here, from the United States. So please make sure that you check all those names. And if you want to do yourself a favor, make sure that you read this book with your computer next to you so you can Google stuff, so you can add to the enrichment of this book. I also want to invite you to pay attention to the people that is endorsing this book. You're going to see a lot of people that is endorsing this book. Please make sure that you go through that list, because there's a lot of important people in here endorsing this book. And that should tell you a little bit about the authenticity of this book. You're going to find people in there like my beloved and one of my favorite author, Jason Miller, the author of Reversal and Protection Magic. That's a book that I talk to you guys about here all the time. And you're also going to find somebody in there that is endorsing that book. His name is Dr. Andrew Chestnut. And I am reading right now another book on La Santa Muerte that he wrote. This book is called Devoted to Death. I'm going to put a picture here in the screen so you can look at the picture. I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with La Santísima Muerte. Like, this book just ignites serious fire in my heart. And I think this is going to do the same for you. I'm really excited to share this with you. Now, the book is also in Audible. It's about 8 hours and so. I like the Audible version. I really admire and all my respect to the person that the narrator of this book, because pronouncing all these Mexican Aztec gods' names is pretty complicated. And she did a pretty good job. But it's also in Audible and also in Kindle and so on and so forth. Now let's talk about Cressida Stone, the author of this book. She's not Mexican. That's the first thing that I want to say. And please, witches, no gatekeeping, okay? No gatekeeping on the comments or anything like that. But Cressida Stone is a doctor on religious study. And for about 25 years, she has traveled the world recording spiritual traditions. She has been in Africa, she has been in Asia, she has been in Europe, in Latin America. And then for 6 years, she lived in Mexico, studying and dedicating her entire time to the devotion of La Santa Muerte. Needless to say, she trained with very important Mexican shamans, brujos, curanderos, and she has lots of beautiful stories which she shared with you throughout the book of her experiences with all these devotees. It's a really interesting, beautiful book. Now, let's talk a little bit about the chapters in the book. Chapter number 1 is going to address who is La Santa Muerte and why work with her. In there, you're going to learn her different names, and you also are going to learn who is she and who she's not. And I'm just going to add this into this conversation. After I read this book, I did a lot of research on La Santa Muerte. I went to YouTube and see what was out there. And let me tell you something, which is La Santa Muerte is definitely not the same as La Catrina. Cressida Stone stressed that in the book. And the reason why I'm mentioning this over here is because after finishing reading the book, that I did a lot of extra research. You have no idea how many videos out there use the image of La Catrina to refer to as La Santa Muerte. So make sure you do not fall into that mistake, because they're definitely not the same ones. She's going to also add in chapter number 1 the different imagery of La Santa Muerte. It's a very basic invitation to the book type of chapter. The second chapter is going to be the history of Santa Muerte. Now, which is the history and the origin and the birth of La Santísima Muerte is a very complex history, and I'm pretty sure depending where you're coming from, you're going to have different ideas and you're going to have different opinions. Now, chapter number 2 is going to be a glimpse on the history and the origin of La Santísima Muerte. She's going to talk about the Aztecs, gods of the Aztecs, so the relationship of La Santa Muerte with Aztecs and native from Mexico. But she's also going to mention a lot of what the colonizadores brought from Spain, for example, the mix, the Catholic Church. It's a very interesting chapter, and I invite you to do a little bit more research about the history and the origin of La Santa Muerte. Chapter number 3, you're going to start more with hands-on. So she's going to tell you how to build the altar for La Santísima Muerte, how to clean that altar, how to dress that altar. And also she's going to mention you who can share the altar with La Santísima Muerte. Because something that I learned in this book is that Santísima Muerte is extremely exclusive saint. So I think this chapter is so important. If you want to start working with La Santa Muerte with the right foot, make sure that you digest this chapter. It's extremely important. She's going to talk to you about incense, about herbs. She's going to touch a little bit of everything, the basics on how to set La Santísima Muerte altar. Something that I found really shocking in this chapter, in chapter number 3, is that Cressida Stone shared with you a pact. This is an unbreakable pact, and it's a blood pact that a devotee will do with La Santísima Muerte. Now, this pact again is unbreakable. You cannot break this pact. So if you actually end up doing this pact with La Santísima Muerte, you are promising her and you are devoting yourself into the last days of your days that you are going to work with her and nobody but her. I don't think this is for everybody. That pact is in that book. I thought it was a little bit shocking. I have never, and I'm not saying that there's not a lot of books out there with different type of pacts that you do with different deities and whatever. But this is the first time, honestly, that I read something like this in a book. And guys, you guys know I read a lot. I thought it was great that is in there. It was shocking to me, and it gave this book a little bit more of, I don't know, some tone of seriousness. A lot of reverence. I really read this book, which is with a lot of reverence, Then from there, we're going to jump into chapter number 4. And this is a pretty hefty chapter. It's one of the chunky chapters on the book. The title of that chapter is going to be Working with La Santa Muerte. It starts very basic and then it picks up, right? So she's going to start telling you about how to buy your Santísima Muerte. She's going to tell you about the origin of the materials that your Santa Muerte is made of. She's going to talk to you about la carga. What is la carga in your Santísima Muerte? Do all Santísima Muertes need a carga? She's going to talk to you about sizes. A lot of people in Mexico like to have La Santísima Muerte like human size. In reality, what matters is the faith in your heart. But she's going to talk to you about sizes. She's going to talk to you about poses because La Santísima Muerte is portrayed in different type of poses. You probably have seen different types of La Santísima Muerte. So she's going to tell you what do they mean. Because depending on what you want and what things that you want to work with her, you will choose a different type of pose. Not only that, she's going to talk to you about the difference in colors. And this is how I learned that I like so much the lavender one. The purple one is the witchy one. I really like her. She's also going to talk to you about the time of the day or night to work with La Santísima Muerte. The author is going to add in these chapters the explanation and what does the attributes of La Santa Muerte mean. Or they represent. So let me tell you what attributes are. So sometimes you're going to see La Santa Muerte with the scales of justice in her hand. Sometimes you're going to see La Santa Muerte with the hourglass in her hand. You're going to see the owl. La Santísima Muerte is always going to have her side. So these are attributes of La Santa Muerte. And these are things that Cressida Stone is going to explain to you. So depending on the work that you have at hand, the type of relationship that you're going to have with her, you're going to have a Santísima Muerte with different type of attributes. Last, the author is going to finish this chapter with animals and insects omens. I really appreciate the insects omens part because that is an add-on to my knowledge. In chapter 5, she's going to talk a little bit more about colors, precisely colors with candles. So what type of color candles are you going to use for what when you work with La Santísima Muerte? So you're going to have all your regular colors. You're also going to have candles that are mixed. And you're also going to have candles that are prepared for specific things like Abre Camino, like Tapa Boca. And there's a lot of very interesting candles. After reading this book, I just want to go to Mexico and I just want to go to all the botanicas in Mexico, which they call yerberias. I just want to buy everything. I just want to go see and I want to see what they have. It's just, I got really excited after reading this chapter. Something really useful that Cressida Stone shared with us, the reader, in this chapter as well, is how to read the flame in your candle. And then how to read the glass in the candle once the wax is consumed. And also how to read different symbols that you may get when wax is melted. And, if you have any symbols in there, how to read them, how to interpret those symbols. I thought that was super cool. The author is going to end this chapter with a really nice note that you must read really attentively. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to read the book for you to know. Now, chapter 6, this is such a beautiful chapter, and I consider myself so lucky that I have this book. Chapter 6 is all prayers. Hear this out, witches. Chapter 6 is going to have, and it's hefty, it's a hefty chapter. It's going to have so many prayers and novenas, and they are authentic from Mexico. And she took the time to translate that for you and for me. And we are so lucky that we actually are going to have in this book authentic prayers for La Santísima Muerte. And there's prayers for everything. You're going to have prayers for love, for health, for money. You're going to have the novenas. You're going to have prayers to honor La Santísima Muerte. It's a beautiful chapter. And I cannot stress enough the value of this chapter in this book. We are so lucky that Cressida Stone took the time and the effort. And you know what? That shows you how much respect and love she has for La Santísima Muerte. And this really moved me. And I'm so grateful from the bottom of my heart that she shared something like that with us. It is truly priceless. Chapter 7 is going to be my favorite chapter because you know why. It has all hechizos and brujería, spells and hexes. Listen, witches. This chapter contains an amalgam of everything. All the spells and hexes that you can imagine, from love to death. We're going to continue with chapter number 8, and that chapter is going to be a ritual for you to break up with La Santísima Muerte, to unbond from La Santísima Muerte. After reading this book, I totally understand and comprehend that working with La Santísima Muerte could be something maybe very heavy. Now, La Santísima Muerte is extremely miraculous. And this is why she has so many devotees. She is absolutely not judgmental. What is just for you is going to be just for her. She's not going to be judging you. But it's got to be a very strong bond between you and La Santísima Muerte. It's got to be a good relationship between you and her. La Santísima Muerte seems to me that is very strict. And again, she's extremely exclusive. So if you ever feel like this is not the right thing for you at one particular moment and you want to unbond from La Santísima Muerte, there is in this chapter, chapter number 8, a little ritual for you to do that. Now, having said that, the blood pact that we have in chapter 3, I think it is, that's unbreakable. That chapter 8 is not going to break that pact. So just read the book attentively. Now she's going to finish with chapter 9, and it's like a little page, and she's going to talk about Santísima Muerte's Day. They usually in Mexico celebrate La Santísima Muerte, and they honor her on El Día de los Muertos that we all know when the Día of the Muertos is. And that's going to be what we call Samhain, usually the October 31st, November 1st. There's also November 2nd. In Spanish countries, we also celebrate November 2nd. But La Santísima Muerte is honored and celebrated on El Día de los Muertos, and some other people also celebrate her on the month of August. What is my take on this book? As a foreign person to La Santísima Muerte, I consider that this book has such important information. And as a novice on La Santísima Muerte, I am so confident that after reading this book, I can start working with La Santísima Muerte. I see and I feel how much does the author knows about this topic, about this religion, about this tradition. And all the effort and respect that she put into this book for you and for me to have this information. She took such care to make sure that you and me know the right techniques on how to practice this tradition, this veneration to La Santísima Muerte, and how to respectfully perform our magic. I also love that this book is filled with so many anecdotes, experiences, and testimonies from different people in different parts of Mexico. From the high in the mountains to the forest to the city. Important people that is extremely famous in Mexico that venerates La Santísima Muerte. Or people that is quiet right in the middle of the jungle, practicing in total secrecy. It's so many different point of views, so many different stories. It's fascinating. I love that there's no gatekeeping in here. She invites for anybody that wants to honor La Santa Muerte and work with La Santa Muerte to do it. What is important, witches, is that you do it properly. I love that about that book. I felt welcome in the book. I felt embraced by the book and by La Santísima Muerte. I'm so very comfortable reading this book. I'm very inspired by the depiction that she transmits of La Santísima Muerte in this book. I feel such reverence for this saint. Once you read this book, you understand the seriousness of working with La Santa Muerte, the respect, the veneration. And if after reading this book, witches, you make the decision of working with La Santísima Muerte, you will do it with the complete understanding of what working with La Santísima Muerte entitles and what you should expect. Again, on a personal level, witches, I felt that this book was 100% charged. I felt that La Santísima Muerte herself was talking to me. She was in my desk and I will look at her every morning, and she gave me so much comfort. I felt so protected. I felt like somebody was watching out for me. This book, I'm getting goosebumps right now while I'm telling you this. This book meant so much for me. Things that I did not like about this book. Only one thing. No bibliography. I wish I had a list of books that maybe I could check for me to keep on reading, doing my homework. But in reality, there's no books over here, and that is something that me as a bookworm, I would have loved for Cressida Stone to share some other books in here with us. I discovered Dr. Andrew Chestnut's book because I know he's here, so I Googled him and I knew he's an author, so I bought his book. But I wish those type of things will be in this book for you and for me to keep doing more research about La Santísima Muerte. That's the only thing that I really did not like about this book. Do I recommend this book? Oh my gosh, witches. 100% yes. If you are to start reading a book on La Santísima Muerte, this should be the book that you should be reading. 100% witches. Witches, I am going to finish this review with this. La Santísima Muerte felt to me very different. Super different from any other deity, saint, energy that I have studied and that I honor and that I practice with. She is death, which is the ultimate, oh my God, leveler. If you're gonna work with her, don't play. And that's it, witches. Please check out. I'm emotional that I actually finished this book. I have a lot of feelings for this book, awoken a lot of feelings in me. I feel like I have such an advocate out there in La Santísima Muerte. I don't know if I'm going to start working with her. I think I want to learn more about La Santísima Muerte, but I almost felt like I have somebody protecting me out there. And it's so funny because we're talking about death. This book really inspired me and really moved me. And if you have always been curious about La Santísima Muerte, so many of you guys have asked me, this is a beautiful book, and read it with respect. Do your own research on the site, especially on the history of the birth of La Santísima Muerte, but do yourself a favor and check out this book. That's it. I'm going to finish now. Thank you so very much for being here with me today. Thank you so much for all your support. If you like my videos, please remember to subscribe to my channel. You will do me such a great favor if you like, if you comment, if you share. I need you, witches. I really do. Make sure to check me out in Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Go check out my website, WhiteRavenandWitchesLair.com. And if you have any questions, you can email me at layerofthewitch@yahoo.com. I'll be there for you if you have any questions. Other than that, witches, in this life, we must stay so very smart because knowledge is power. The more we learn, the more power we acquire. But after all that, with all that knowledge that you get, you have to discern and you have to stay so very wicked. Bye.